Welcome to World Building, Madlibs style. I'm Joelle Charbonneau. I will be your host for this little adventure. As you may or may not know, I wasn't exactly an enthusiastic writer when I was in school. I don't know about you, but I felt like the entire point of writing in class was to get a decent grade. So I did what anyone would do, what maybe you do now. I wrote what I thought my teacher wanted to hear. And then I put the assignment behind me and I moved on. Well, this workshop is not about writing what you think your teacher wants to hear. I don't want you to write what you think I want to hear. No, today I want you to write whatever pops into your head, even if you think it's silly or impossible or just plain wrong. Trust me, the only way you can be wrong is to not write anything at all. So, with that in mind, let's talk world building. Every story, whether it's science fiction or fantasy, historical or contemporary, requires the world to be built in order to write. And building that world is incredibly important because the world affects everything in the story. A lot of writers discuss, what they come up with first. Do they come up with plot or characters? I don't do either. I come up with the world first because if I don't, nothing I decide about the plot or the characters will be right. A story changes when the world changes. And the right world is really the only thing that makes that particular story possible. You don't believe me? Let's look at a story every student, whether you're currently learning on your computer at home or sitting in a classroom, you can relate to. Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Okay, it's an old movie, I know, but it kind of works for this. If you don't know the film, well, now you know what you're going to watch this weekend. I bet anything your parents will be happy to watch it with you, which may or may not be good with you. I guess that depends on your point of view. However, for those of you who have not had the pleasure of viewing it yet, the movie takes place in the 1980s. Ferris Bueller lives in the suburbs of Chicago, and it's at the end of his senior year. It's a beautiful May day outside, and he decides it's the perfect day to cut school one last time and have a final amazing adventure with his friends. You can relate to that, right? I know I kind of can. So, Ferris convinces his best friend Cameron they should borrow Cameron's father's classic convertible and drive downtown with Ferris's girlfriend. Then they proceed to go to a very fancy lunch, a baseball game, and Ferris even winds up singing in a parade. Don't ask me, it's what's in the movie. All of this, though, happens while his principal and even Ferris's sister are trying to kind of bust him for all of his shenanigans and finally reveal what he's been doing to his parents all this time that they've been clueless about. Ferris eventually has to make it home before his parents get home from work so he doesn't get busted and potentially lose out on graduation and have to repeat senior year, which would be a total bummer. Fun, right? Okay, so that's Ferris Bueller's Day Off, 1980s, northern suburbs of Chicago. Can you imagine a story like that working in modern day? I mean, we can all relate to wanting to cut school and have an adventure. But can it work in 2020? I say no. I dare you to guess why. I really do. I dare you. Teachers, if you want to let them guess before I spoil it, you can hit pause now. I will wait. All right. Either you've hit pause and discussed, or you're just letting it go through. But whether or not you have discussed, you may have guessed the reasons why Ferris Bueller's Day Off will not work in the year 2020. There are more than one. But on the top of the list is this. The phone. Technology. Cell phones did not really exist a whole lot in the late 1980s. I mean, they were there, but there were these big bricks, and Google it, they're fascinating. But no, people didn't have them around. Ferris wouldn't have carried one. Very few people had them. Occasionally you had them in your car, but they were like hardwired into your car. Cell phones as they exist now did not exist in 1980. And these would end Ferris Bueller's Day Off before it had a chance to begin. I mean, come on. Just imagine how many views on TikTok he'd have for his singing in the parade, right? His parents would certainly learn about that. Or it would be on YouTube or Twitter or Facebook. I mean, everyone in school would know what happened before it ever ended. And that would bust him. Not to mention, the principal wouldn't have a hard time tracking his parents down at work. You know, neither one has a desk job, but he would still be able to find them because he could call their cell phone, and then they would call Ferris's phone, and when he didn't pick up, they would just call the handy-dandy, phone company, or use their little locate app, and they would find Ferris based on his GPS location. They'd be like, find Ferris. Oh, look, he's in the middle of Chicago where he's not supposed to be. And suddenly there would be no graduation for him. Ferris Bueller's Day Off would be a very different story in the year 2020. And how about the location? I mean, would the story work in another place? Right now, it's on the northern suburb of Chicago, where they drive into Chicago and then drive back. I mean, they do have baseball in other cities. Although, the Chicago Cubs really are the only people that play day games in a normal, non-COVID year during the weekdays. And face it, I mean, traffic is no joke, especially now. It's only gotten worse since the 1980s. Could you really believe that Ferris could bust everybody out of school, drive in the convertible downtown, go to a very fancy lunch, go to a baseball game, sing in a parade, then get back into his car in traffic hours, drive all the way home, spend some time at his friend's house, and eventually still get home before his parents got home from work? Yeah, not so much. Traffic would absolutely bust him. And really, if you said it in any other place other than the Midwest, all the characters would feel different too. So even if it's in the Midwest, I mean, say, hey, we said it in a rural town, would that work? Well, it's not exactly a parade going downtown anytime. And I guess you could bust out of school and go cow tipping or play video games. But really, the whole premise of Ferris Bueller's Day Off wouldn't exactly be the same story. The world that it's set in, that story changes everything. Sure, you could still write a story now about a kid who cuts school and has a great adventure, but it could not possibly be the same story. With that in mind, today, I'm going to prove that whole concept to you, that you cannot have the same story when you change the world. And I'm going to prove it through a world-building exercise, which you're all rolling your eyes at me now, but sorry, it's going to be fun, I promise. Okay, now that I've given you the example of Ferris Bueller's Day Off and you've learned a little bit about why world building is important, I'm going to really make you see how important it is. I'm going to get you started with 7 easy Madlib style steps that you're going to use to build a world for the story you're going to write. Once you create the world, I'm going to give you all the same story. But it's not going to be the same story when you're done with it, because the choices you make are going to make them very different from each other. Are you ready? Okay, let's play world building Madlibs. And just like Madlibs, you're going to fill in random blanks without knowing what you're going to write. Be wild and crazy and as bonkers as you want to be. Above all, have fun. There is no right or wrong answers here. But remember, like Madlibs, whatever you pick, you're stuck with it. And you have to figure out how to make it work. Ready? Okay. There are 7 Madlib steps I'm going to give you to build your world. Step 1, pick a day. No, I'm really serious. Pick a day. It's kind of like a card trick. Pick a card, pick a day. You want a day, a month, and a year. When does your story start? Is it December and it's a Monday in the year 2030? Is it July 4th, 1776? Is it the 7th day of the blood moon in the year of the Milky Way? It can be anything you want, but you have to pick a day. Day, month, year. And once you're done, that's it. You are stuck with it. Deal? Okay. Step 2. How do things work in your world? This is the physics of your world, the science. Do you have gravity? Do things fall up instead of down? Maybe you're like the spaceship in Wall-E. I love that movie. Where everybody on the spaceship, there's gravity, but it's not the same gravity as Earth, and people start to get a little weird and they walk a little differently because they don't have the same gravity, or like the moon. Or maybe your world is kind of like this one. It could be exactly like this one. It works this way, or maybe there's no electricity. Do you have magic in your world? You might. Or maybe you have the Force. Inquiring minds want to know. Pick something. Tell me how the world works. Write it down. Any rules that are different from this one, write them down. How does your world work? Go. Okay, you have a day and you know the physics. So step 3 is weather. What's the weather like in your world? Now you can say, oh, hey, it's just like this world where some days it's rainy and some days that it's sunny and everything. But kind of the day that you start has to have a specific weather. So is it sunny? Is it rainy? Or maybe it never rains in your world because, boy, that causes its own kind of problems. Maybe it's always sunny, which sounds delightful until it happens. Or maybe there is no sun anymore. Could be, which that totally changes the weather patterns. Maybe there's acid rain. Maybe it's always snowy. Do you have snow? Is there no snow? Those kind of things really can change a story. A story set in a blizzard has very different implications than if it's sunny outside. What's the weather like in your world? I will tell you that often I love binge reading a series, especially a lot of science fiction series where they're overthrowing governments. I know, big shocker. But I'll pick up a whole series. I won't have read it beforehand. I'll read them back to back to back to back. And yeah, there's all these problems with the government and there's all these other things they need to worry about. And I realize while I'm reading, there is no weather anywhere in the book. It's always sunny. And then I have questions like, how are your people eating? How do they grow food without any rain? So ask yourself, what's the weather like? And then decide what that means for your world. Step 4. Where are you? What's the geography like right now for your main character? Where are they? Are they on a mountaintop? Are they on an island? Are they on a series of islands all connected by bridges? Are they in the middle of a desert? Maybe they're in a city. You'll find that in a lot of mysteries, especially middle grade mysteries, so some of my favorites still, they take place in these small towns that are easy to get around because, the kids want to go investigate a murder. And you can't just go up to your parents and say, hey, Mom, I'm going to go investigate this bank robbery or this crime. Want to go drive me? They need public transportation to get around that's safe. And everyone believes that no one will question whether they're on it. So it's typically like a city or a small town where they can ride their bikes. Are you in a rural area in which there's a lot of farms or a lot of land in between houses and it makes it harder to get around? Maybe you need a boat. Maybe there are no boats. Where are you? I need to know. So pick a location, any location, whether it's a farm or a town or a village or a space station in the middle of, a galaxy light years away. But that's where your character is. So write that down now. For step 5, I want you to look up, or at least your character to look up. What do you see? What does your character see? Do they see the sun, the moon, and the stars like we do? Do they not see any stars if they're on Earth? Because, boy, that means something bad. Maybe when they look up, they just see dirt because they're underground. Or they look up and they see 2 suns because they're on Tatooine. This is kind of one of those great, don't tell us about something, show us. This is a great way to be able to do that. But also determine what's happening really in your world. Because if you look up and you see hazy stars that were once bright, boy, something happened there. And we want to know about it. If you look up and you only see a concrete ceiling and that's all your character has seen their entire life, that's something really intense too. So, what do you see when you look up? What does your character see? Step 6, animals. What kind of animals exist in your world? It's a big choice to make. This is George. He's one of the animals in my world, and he happens to be named after the cat in Verify that is named George. Bonus points for any of you who can figure out why I named a cat in Verify George and what the other cat is also named after. Please let me know if you figure it out. But animals to me say a great deal about a world. Like, does your world have animals? If not, that's a really big deal. Maybe they're prehistoric. Maybe they're big alien creatures, which could say something. What kind of animals exist in your world, and how do people think about animals? Are they taking over? Are they so rare that people can't eat them? I mean, really, what do animals say? And do people actually use them anymore as pets? Do they have them as pets? Do they take care of them? Do they not? It'll say a great deal about your character if they have a pet, or maybe they're forbidden from having a pet. Boy, that'll tell you something. Or they could be the reluctant pet owner, and those are always fascinating too. Like maybe they want to fish at the fun fair. I always want to fish at the fun fair. My fish died the next day. Day after the fun fair, belly up. So maybe this person gets the fish and they go home thinking it's no big deal because it's going to die the next day, and the fish is still alive the next morning. So they feed it and they take care of it, and then the next day and the next day, and the fish keeps swimming no matter how much they think the fish is going to die. No matter how much they complain, it tells you something about the character who keeps taking care of the fish, even though they maybe say that they don't want to. Animals can say so much about what's right and wrong in your world. It can change everything about how your character has to live their everyday life. So, what kind of animals are in your world? What's the situation there? I want you to write that down right now. Congratulations, you've arrived at step 7. Now for step 7, I'm going to cheat a little bit, and I'm going to give you the story and also tell you what blank you need to fill in at the same time. Because the blank is going to be the characters of the story you're going to write using all the steps and all the things that you filled in your Madlibs up until now. And that story is Jack and Jill. The nursery rhyme Jack and Jill. Yes, I know you've heard it for forever, or maybe you've never heard it at all. And if not, I will tell you the story of Jack and Jill. But I want you all to write Jack and Jill because I have so many questions about Jack and Jill, and I want you to answer them for me. So, the story goes, Jack and Jill went up a hill to fetch a pail of water. Jack fell down and broke his crown, and Jill came tumbling after. That's it. It's that easy. Or not, depending on what kind of story you want to write. But first you have to fill in the blanks. Those last 2 blanks, who are Jack and Jill? Who are they? What kind of characters are going to live in your world and you're going to set off on an adventure? A lot of people think they might be a brother and sister, but nowhere in the story does it say that. It doesn't even say it's a boy and a girl. It could be a boy and a goat. It could be 2 boys, 2 girls. I mean, Jack could be a really great, cool, nickname for Jacqueline. Jill could be a really nifty, alien nickname or something else. You can decide. You can even change the names if you want. Who are Jack and Jill? Are they strangers? Are they a couple getting a divorce who really don't like each other? Really? Anything goes. Once you pick who Jack and Jill are, set them on their adventure. And boy, do I have questions. Why are they going up a hill for water? Really, why? What's with the water up there? I mean, where do you get your water? I mean, did they not pay their water bill and there's no water coming out of the faucet? Maybe it's the only water source for miles. Maybe it means something else in this world. Maybe water isn't really water, or maybe it's the fountain of youth. Which would explain why it's on the top of a hill. Because really, why are they going uphill to a well? Normally, people don't put wells at the top of the hill because in my world, the physics here works where water runs down. So why up at the top of this hill? And then Jack falls down. What happened there? I mean, Was there a breeze? Did the goat push him? What's the deal? Like, is this the only water source for miles and they get attacked, or they are stealing something that belongs to somebody else? I really want to know. Why does Jack fall down and what does he break? A real crown that he's wearing on his head? Is it his tooth? Is it money? Is it something else? And why does Jill come tumbling after? I mean, as far as we knew, she was standing over on the sideline somewhere. What's with that? Is she a drama queen and just sees him falling and decides she doesn't want him to get all the attention? I want to know. I have so many questions, and you're going to be the one to answer them. And really, when I say write whatever comes into your head, I mean it. There are no rules here other than to try. Be as crazy as you want. If you get stuck, just ask yourself what's the wildest thing that you would never write for anything else and put that into the story. I mean, who knows? Maybe Batman shows up. I want you to write whatever it is that comes into your head. Take your Jack and Jill on a journey through the world that you built. I want to see the world through their eyes. I want to see what kind of life they live, what kind of problems they have. I want to see why they end up down at the bottom of the hill. Or do they end up at the bottom of the hill, or maybe they go somewhere else? The story is yours. And there is no wrong when you write your own story. The only thing that would be wrong is not to write. Good luck. And I can't wait to hear what you come up with.